So welcome to the first episode of Her Secret Success, where we're guiding women in leadership to be unstoppable. I'm your host, Annette Bacon, and today we're talking about something that every woman in leadership has ever felt at some point but rarely says aloud. And that is, what happens when your workplace starts dimming your light? You might be showing up every day, giving your all, but inside something has shifted. You're not as confident, you're not as energized, and you're definitely not as inspired. You've started wondering, is it me or is it the environment? If that's you, stay with me. Because in today's episode, we're pulling back the curtain on my 5 red flags of toxic work cultures. They are the ones that quietly erode your confidence, your clarity, and your sense of self-worth. Our first episode together is Breaking Free, Why Your Leadership Success is Not a Secret. So let's take a deep dive into what my 5 red flags that you're in a toxic environment looks like. So my first red flag that you are in a toxic environment is that you feel that you are constantly walking on eggshells. You'll know this one. It's when you walk into a meeting and before you speak, you're already editing your thoughts and you're wondering and asking yourself, is this actually safe to say? Well, that's not collaboration. That's emotional survival. So what I want you to do now is grab your notebook and or journal and take a deep breath and ask yourself this question. Have you noticed how much energy you spend managing people's reactions instead of leading with your voice? So I want you to take a moment and really think about what your intuition is telling you right now, in this moment, and note it down. So let's talk about my second red flag that you're in a toxic work environment, and that is recognition is replaced by blame. A toxic workplace flips the script. Instead of celebrating wins, it's hunting for mistakes. You can give your best, but if accountability means blame, then trust starts to die. So I want you to grab your notebook again and ask yourself this question. Where in your work life have you taken responsibility for things that were never fully yours to carry? Again, I encourage you to take a moment and note down what your intuition is telling you right now in this moment. So my third red flag that you're in a toxic environment is communication feels like a minefield. This is where you'll be praised one day and then criticized the next. There's no clarity, there's no consistency, and it's total chaos. Then you start second guessing yourself, and eventually silence feels safer than speaking. So again, grab your notebook and ask yourself this question and note your response. How much of your energy is spent decoding mixed messages instead of focusing on what truly matters? So again, take a moment and note your responses down. My fourth red flag that you're in a toxic work environment is burnout is the badge of honor. Now I know about this one. I wore this badge loud and proud for a long time, too long. And the effects on my health and well-being when I didn't let go of this badge resulted in many health issues that I'm still overcoming today. Toxic cultures glorify exhaustion, like working yourself to the bone should mean loyalty. But here's the truth. exhaustion is not a leadership trait. It is a warning light. So grab your notebook and ask yourself this question. When did you start feeling guilty for resting or for saying no? Take a moment and note your responses down. My fifth and final red flag that you're in a toxic environment is this. Your confidence is slipping away. This is the hardest one because it creeps up so quietly. You used to walk into rooms with certainty. Now you doubt your value, your ideas, and your place. But hear this. Your power isn't gone. It's just been buried under survival. So grab your notebook and for our final reflection, ask yourself this question. If you were to reconnect with the version of you before the doubt, what would she say to you right now? So for your final reflection, take a moment and note your responses down. So if any of those red flags hit close to home, I'm here to support you. So first, let's take a deep breath. And say with me, I'm not broken. I'm not too sensitive. You are a woman who's navigating an unhealthy environment, and now you're waking up to what's real. So with that said, the first step towards change is self-awareness. Awareness is the first step to transformation. Now that you have that awareness, what's the next step? I'm glad you asked. So in this segment, these are my 3 action tips to start breaking free from a toxic work environment. My first action tip number 1 is name it. Awareness creates choice. The first step to reclaim your power is to name what's actually happening. Awareness creates choice, and choice is the start of freedom. Think of it like this. A client I was working with kept telling herself she just needed to toughen up, even though every Monday she felt the familiar anxiety in her chest. It wasn't until she wrote down what was actually happening, what she was experiencing, the tension before the meetings, the fear of speaking up, the exhaustion. That's when she realized it wasn't weakness. It was a toxic pattern. When you name it, you take it out of the shadows and into the light. You can't fix what you can't see. But once you see it, you start to shift it. Your reflection for this tip is, what truth have you been avoiding naming because it felt safer to be silent? My action tip 2 is observe, don't absorb. Protect your energy. You can't control how others show up, but you can control what you internalize. In toxic environments, emotions are contagious, but your power comes through observation, not absorption. For example, Mel's manager often made cutting remarks in team meetings. Every time she left feeling heavy and questioning her worth. But the moment she learned to mentally step back and observe rather than absorb, things began to shift. She'd think, that tone says more about them than me. It became her quiet boundary, and her peace came back. Observation is leadership in motion. You stay centered, grounded, and unattached to their chaos. You reflect it, not absorb it. Your reflection for this tip is: what situations drain your energy most? And how would you step back into observation mode instead of absorption mode? My final action tip number 3 is reconnect with your worth. Rebuild what toxicity has tried to erase. You are more than your role, and your worth is not defined by how others treat you. Toxic workplaces convince you that your value depends on your output, or worse, on other people's approval. But your worth was never up for debate. Mel began rebuilding her confidence by creating what I call her daily connection rituals. Each morning, before checking emails, she'd write one thing down she was proud of, one thing she was grateful for, and one affirmation about who she is becoming. Over time, she noticed her voice growing stronger, her energy was more grounded, and her self-belief returning. That's what reconnection does. It rewires your confidence from the inside out. Your final reflection for this tip is: what's one simple practice that you can start this week that helps you to reconnect with your worth? Note your thoughts coming up for you with that question. So to wrap up this segment of my practical action tips for you to use to break free from toxic environments, my final words are: small, consistent steps like these become the bridge between awareness and action. And when you commit to them, you'll start noticing your clarity returns, your confidence rebuilds, and your energy shifts from surviving to leading. Now, after everything we've talked about today, the red flags, the awareness, and the action steps, I want you to take a deep breath and come back to yourself. This is your moment to reset, to remind yourself of who you are beneath all the noise, the pressure, and the expectations. So let's anchor this episode with a simple affirmation, something to carry with you in the week ahead. I am no longer shrinking to fit into unhealthy spaces. I am reclaiming my voice, my value, and my power. Let those words settle in. Every time you repeat them, you're retraining your mind to choose power over fear and self-worth over approval. This is how confidence is rebuilt, not in a rush, but one truth, one boundary, and one brave decision at a time. And before we close, I want to leave you with an empowerment quote, something to inspire you and remind you that you were never meant to stay small. My empowerment quote for you for this week is: you don't have to stay where your light keeps being dimmed. You were made to shine. Your light isn't fragile. It's fierce, it's divine, and it's needed. Every time you choose to honor yourself, to speak up, to walk away, or to rise again, your light shines brighter. And that's the beginning of your secret success. Coming up next on episode 2, On my next episode, I'll be joined by an incredible guest who knows exactly what it's like to break free from toxic culture and rebuild her confidence from the ground up. You won't want to miss her story. It's powerful, it's real, and it's full of the breakthroughs we all need. Remember, your success was never meant to be hidden. It was always meant to shine. I'm Annette Bacon, and this is Her Secret Success, guiding women in leadership to be unstoppable, to speak up, to walk away, or to rise again. Let your light shine brighter. And that's the beginning of your secret success.